Hello friends. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. It happened 2 summers ago when I was living alone in a small 2-bedroom house just outside of Sacramento. I had just moved out after a messy breakup and was still getting used to the silence. No TV in the background, no extra toothbrush by the sink, no one waiting for me to come home. The house was part of an older neighborhood, big trees, cracked sidewalks, and a community so quiet you could hear your own footsteps echoing down the street at night. I worked late most days and usually came home around 7. That evening was no different. It was hot, dry, and the air outside felt like static. I remember pulling into the driveway, seeing a white utility van parked 2 houses down. No company logo, just plain white, clean and out of place for that street. I didn't think much of it. I had a headache, my groceries were melting in the back seat, and I just wanted to shower and sleep. When I got inside, everything felt normal. The house smelled like dust and pine cleaner. I unpacked, fed my cat, and scrolled through my phone until I dozed off on the couch. Around 9:30 p.m., I woke up to the sound of knocking. Not polite knocking. Heavy, uneven thuds that rattled the doorframe. I froze for a second, half asleep, then got up. Through the peephole, I saw a man standing on the porch. He was tall, wearing dark coveralls and holding a clipboard. A flashlight hung from his belt, and there was a badge clipped near his chest that just said, "Maintenance." He smiled when he saw the peephole shadow move. "Evening, ma'am," he said, voice calm, almost friendly. "I'm with the housing inspection team. We're checking the gas lines and water pressure on this block. You should have gotten a notice I hadn't." Something about his tone, casual but rehearsed, made my stomach twist. "I didn't get any notice," I said through the door. He leaned slightly toward the peephole, like he wanted to be closer to my voice. "Yeah, they've been bad about paperwork lately. It's just a quick check, won't take 2 minutes. You can watch the whole time if you want." I told him I'd call the property manager first. His smile faded. His eyes didn't. "Of course," he said. "I'll wait right here." When I dialed the property office, it went to voicemail. It was well past working hours. I looked again through the peephole. He was still there, not shifting, not checking his phone, just standing perfectly still, staring straight ahead at the door. Something about how he stood bothered me more than his words. People waiting usually rock back and forth, glance around, move a little. He didn't. After a few moments, he gave a slow nod, then turned and walked back down the driveway toward that same white van I'd seen earlier. I watched through the side window as he got in, started the engine, and drove away. No headlights on. That should have been the end of it. But an hour later, I heard footsteps outside the kitchen window. Soft, deliberate, gravel crunching under boots. My heart started pounding. I killed the lights, grabbed my phone, and crouched near the corner of the living room. The footsteps moved around to the back of the house, then stopped. I dialed 911, whispering as I gave the dispatcher my address. While I was on the call, I heard it, the quiet metallic scrape of the back door handle being tested. Then, the faint click of someone trying a key. When the police arrived 10 minutes later, the man was gone. They found fresh boot prints near the back door and smudges on the kitchen window, like someone had been pressing their hands against the glass. The officer told me it was probably a scammer, people pretending to be utility workers to check if anyone's home. He advised me to keep my doors locked and maybe install a camera. I nodded, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't just checking. He had been studying. Over the next few days, I started noticing small things around the house that didn't add up. The gate to my backyard, which I always kept latched, would be found open. The porch light flickered once or twice when I came home, like someone had been tampering with it. And one morning, when I went to take out the trash, I found a plastic water bottle wedged behind my garbage bin. It was filled halfway with murky liquid, and the cap was drilled with a tiny hole, like someone had been using it to drip something. The cops brushed it off again. Probably a prank. Probably kids. But kids don't leave boot prints that deep in dry soil. A week later, I came home from work early, around 5:30, and noticed the same white van parked further down the street. No one inside. No one around. I went inside, locked everything, and closed the blinds. That night, around midnight, I woke up to the faint sound of running water. It took me a second to realize it was coming from inside the house. The kitchen faucet was on, full blast. I walked in slowly, heart hammering, and the sight stopped me cold. There were muddy footprints leading from the back door to the sink. The door itself was still locked, but when I looked closely, the screws around the handle had been loosened, almost completely removed, and then set back, just enough to hold. It was like someone was preparing to come in quietly whenever they wanted. I called 911 again. This time, they sent 2 officers. They searched the entire house and found no one. No forced entry, nothing stolen. But one of them, the older cop, looked uneasy. He told me quietly that this wasn't the first time they'd had calls like this recently. A man posing as a service worker had been spotted in nearby neighborhoods. White van, fake badge, sometimes using real names of local utility staff to sound convincing. In one case, a woman reported that he'd broken in while she was at work, rearranged things in her kitchen, left the back door open, and nothing else. Just enough to make her doubt her own memory. That was his pattern. He didn't steal. He watched. I didn't sleep that night. Every noise made me jump. The refrigerator hum, the pipes creaking, the wind brushing against the siding. By morning, I decided to pack a bag and stay with a friend for a few days. Before leaving, I checked every lock, window, and door twice. Then, out of pure paranoia, I placed a small glass bottle on top of the inside handle of the back door, just to know if someone opened it. 3 nights later, I got a call from my neighbor, an older man who lived 2 houses down. He told me someone had been parked in front of my house the night before. A white van, lights off, engine running. When he walked out with his flashlight, the van sped away. He didn't catch the plate number, but he said the driver was wearing dark coveralls. The same night, police found a crowbar and a clipboard tossed into the ditch at the end of the street. The clipboard still had a paper sheet clipped to it, and written across the top in black marker were the words, "Inspection route, completed." Underneath, my address was the last one on the list. I moved out 2 weeks later. The new tenants probably never knew why some of the screws on the back door had been replaced, or why the porch light kept flickering even after being changed twice. But I'll never forget that man's face through the peephole. The way he smiled like he already knew I was going to open the door eventually. He wasn't there to steal anything. He just wanted to see what fear looked like from the other side. Most people think bad things only happen in rundown neighborhoods or big cities, not in places like Maple Glen, where every mailbox matches and every lawn smells faintly of fertilizer and safety. I was 17 the spring this happened, junior year at Lincoln High, and my parents had driven to Arizona for the weekend to visit my aunt. It was supposed to be my first full weekend alone. Our house sat at the end of a curved cul-de-sac, lined with tall oaks and identical white fences. I knew everyone on that street. The McKinneys next door, old Mr. Harris, who always watered his driveway, and the Carsons, who had a dog that barked at literally everything. It was Saturday, early afternoon, and I was deep into a true crime documentary marathon on Netflix. The irony of that detail still messes with me. That's when I heard it. 3 sharp knocks at the front door. Not urgent, not friendly, just deliberate. At first, I thought it might be a delivery. I waited for the telltale thump of a package drop, but after a few seconds came another set of knocks, slower this time. I sighed, paused the show, and walked toward the door, phone still in my hand. Through the peephole, I saw 2 men standing on the porch. One was maybe late 20s, wearing a navy hoodie and faded jeans. The other, older, 40s, graying stubble, heavy-set, wearing a plain gray t-shirt tucked into work pants. Both looked ordinary, but something about how they stood, completely still, side by side, made my stomach tighten. No movement, no phone, no smile, just waiting. I didn't open the door all the way, only unlatched the chain an inch. The younger man stepped forward first, close enough that I could smell cigarette smoke and something sharp, like motor oil or gasoline. "Sorry to bother you," he said, tone even, polite, practiced. "We're looking for our dog. A beagle mix, brown and white, name's Rusty. Slipped out of the yard earlier. Someone said they saw him run this way." I glanced past them. No leash, no collar, no treats or flyers, nothing. The older one stood at the bottom step, scanning the front of the house. The windows, the driveway, the side gate. His eyes moved slow and steady, as if memorizing the layout. "Sorry," I said quickly. "Haven't seen any dog around here." The younger one smiled a little, but his eyes didn't match the smile. "Would you mind checking your backyard? Sometimes they sneak under fences. We could come around and help look." That's when something in my gut screamed, though. "I'll check later," I said. Pretty sure he's not back there. His tone shifted, barely, lighter, conversational. "You home alone?" I froze. Every muscle in my shoulders went tight. I forced a laugh. "My dad's upstairs napping." A lie. But I said it casually enough that I hoped it sounded true. The older one finally spoke, voice rough and low. "Nice place," he said, looking directly through the small opening in the door chain. "Your folks must work hard for it." It wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. Slow, pointed, like a test. My throat felt dry. "Well, good luck finding Rusty," I managed. Then I shut the door, fast, sliding the deadbolt home. Through the peephole, I watched them stand there for a few seconds. The younger one leaned toward the door, muttered something I couldn't hear, and then they both laughed quietly before walking off down the driveway. I didn't breathe until their white van turned the corner. I called my mom right away. She went full mom mode. Calm voice, but rapid-fire questions. "What did they look like? What did they say? Did you lock the doors?" I told her everything, and though she didn't say it, I could tell she was scared. She offered to come home early, but it was a 6-hour drive from Flagstaff. "It's fine," I said. "They're gone." But as soon as we hung up, I double-checked every lock in the house. Front, back, windows, even the sliding door to the patio. I wedged a broom handle in the track like I'd seen in some survival video once. For the next couple hours, I tried to distract myself. Made popcorn, scrolled through TikTok, texted my friend Ellie about her disastrous date the night before. But every now and then, I'd find myself at the living room window, peeking through the curtain. The street was calm, someone mowing, kids on scooters, normal Saturday stuff. By 4:30, I'd finally convinced myself I was just being paranoid, until I heard it. A car door slam. Close. Too close. I froze mid-step, heart pounding. then moved quietly toward the dining room window that overlooked the driveway. They were back, the same two men, just standing there at the end of the driveway facing the house. Neither moved, neither spoke. The younger one had his head tilted slightly, like he was listening for something. The older one's lips moved, counting, maybe. They stood there for a full minute before beginning to walk up the driveway in perfect sync. Same pace, same stride. I backed away from the window so fast I nearly tripped over a chair. This time, they didn't knock, didn't ring the bell. They just stood on the porch. Their shadows fell across the door, two long shapes framed in the sunlight filtering through the side window. The older one leaned in, pressing his face against the glass panel beside the door, hands cupped around his eyes. I could see his grin, wide, too wide. The doorknob rattled once, then again, harder. I grabbed my phone, hit 911, whispering fast. "There are two men at my door. They're trying to get in. Please, hurry!" The dispatcher's voice came calm, professional. "Stay on the line with me." "Are your doors locked?" "Yes." "Can you get somewhere safe in the house?" "The stairs. I'm going upstairs." As I moved, the rattling stopped. Through the frosted window, I saw them both step back. The younger one reached into his pocket and pulled out something metallic, thin, shiny, maybe a lockpick or screwdriver. Before I could even think, a voice boomed from outside. "You boys need something?" It was Mr. Harris, my next-door neighbor. 68 years old, bad hip, always wore plaid shirts and Crocs. But right then, he sounded like a man ready to fight. He was standing at the edge of his yard holding a shovel like a weapon. The men turned toward him in unison. The younger one smiled, raising his hand in a casual wave. "Just looking for our dog," he called out. "Beagle, about 40 pounds. You see him around?" Mr. Harris didn't move. "Been sitting on my porch all afternoon. Didn't see a damn dog. But I did see you fellas sitting in that van for the last hour." The older man opened his mouth, but that's when we all heard it. The faint rise of sirens in the distance. The men exchanged a quick look, then turned and walked. Fast, not running, but urgent, back toward their van parked down the street. They drove off before the first patrol car even rounded the corner. When the officers arrived, lights flashing against the white fences, I was shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. They took everything seriously. Photographed the fresh scratches on the doorknob, the footprints on the porch. One of the cops crouched down to look at the prints, muttering, "Same sole pattern we saw last week." I didn't know what that meant until later. Mr. Harris gave his statement, described the men, the van, even jotted down part of the license plate before they'd left. The officer radioed it in. It came back stolen. That changed their tone completely. Suddenly, they were calling in more units, canvassing the area, asking if I had somewhere safe to go. When my parents heard, they drove straight home. Made a 6-hour trip in under 4. That night, I stayed at the Harris's house while the police searched nearby parking lots and alleys. Mrs. Harris fed me hot chocolate and kept patting my shoulder, while her husband sat by the front window, the same shovel leaning against the wall. Around 10 p.m., an officer came by to update us. They'd found the van abandoned in a strip mall parking lot 10 miles away. The inside had been wiped clean. No fingerprints, no trash, nothing. Except for a coil of rope, a roll of duct tape, and a small red collar with a tag that read, "Rusty." The next morning, Detective Owens, mid-30s, tired eyes, came by to talk. He told us there had been similar incidents in 2 neighboring towns. Same story. 2 men. White van. Lost dog, excuse. But in one case, the men actually got inside. The homeowner's daughter, 19, had been home sick. She survived. Barely. That's when it really hit me how close I'd come. We installed a full security system that week. Cameras, sensors, motion lights. My parents even got me a baseball bat to keep in my room, just in case. For a while, I couldn't even look at a white van without my stomach tightening. Even months later, little things would trigger me. A knock at the door, footsteps on gravel, the sound of someone laughing outside. 8 months passed. I just started senior year, trying to move on, when I saw him again. I was at a shopping plaza with friends, grabbing boba after school, and there he was, the younger one, working at a cell phone kiosk, wearing a polo shirt with a name tag that said, Tyler. Smiling, chatting with an elderly man about data plans. For a second, I thought I was imagining it. But then he looked up, right at me. And that same slow, deliberate smile spread across his face. He gave me a small, 2-finger salute, exactly like before. Then he turned back to his customer, like nothing happened. I didn't tell my parents, or the police, because what could I say? That one of the men who tried to break into our house was now selling phone cases at the mall? Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe my brain filled in the blanks. But deep down, I know it was. Because when I got home that night, there was a small, muddy paw print on our front step. And we don't own a dog. I grew up in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Oregon, in a narrow 2-story townhouse at the end of a dead-end street. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone, but no one actually talked much. It was just me and my mom back then. My dad had left when I was 6, and since then, it was the 2 of us trying to make ends meet. Mom worked long shifts at a local diner called Sonny's, and she often didn't get home until after dark. Most afternoons, I'd come home from school, toss my backpack by the stairs, grab a snack, and melt into the couch in front of the TV. I actually liked being alone. No noise, no nagging, no one telling me to do homework. But that one Thursday afternoon changed everything. It was around 4:10 p.m. I had a bowl of cereal in my hand, watching some rerun of Family Feud, when I heard something faint. A soft, slow creaking sound above me. At first, I ignored it. Old houses make noises, right? Air ducts, pipes, whatever. But this one, it had a rhythm. Creak, shuffle, stop, then again. Creak, shuffle. It was coming from directly above the living room ceiling. I muted the TV, holding my breath, waiting. The sound stopped. For about 5 seconds, there was total silence. Then I heard it again, this time heavier, like someone dragging their knee or elbow across wood. My chest tightened. We had a crawlspace attic, but no one ever went up there. Mom always said it was too small for storage. Just wires and insulation, she'd said once. But that day, something was moving up there. I stood up slowly, still clutching my spoon like it could protect me, and grabbed the broom from the corner. With a shaky hand, I poked the ceiling once. Silence. I did it again, a little harder. That's when it answered. Thump, thump, thump. 3 short, solid knocks from the other side of the ceiling. Every hair on my body stood on end. I whispered. No way. But I'd heard it. It was deliberate. My first thought was an animal, maybe a raccoon or a squirrel. But raccoons don't knock back. For almost a full minute, I stood frozen, staring up, afraid to even breathe. Then I heard it again, the faint rustle of fabric. Someone was up there. The crawlspace entrance was at the top of the stairs, in the hallway ceiling, a little wooden panel with a pull cord that dangled down. That pull cord had always creeped me out at night. Sometimes, when the air vent kicked on, it would sway slightly, like someone had just brushed past it. Now, as I climbed the stairs, that thin cord looked like a noose. I reached the top step and froze. Silence. Then, Rustle. Rustle. Something shifted right above me. I backed away, heart racing, and darted into my bedroom, slamming the door shut quietly, like that would do anything. I tried calling Mom. No answer. Straight to voicemail. I sat on my bed, gripping my phone, listening. For the next 10 minutes, there was nothing. Just the low hum of the refrigerator downstairs. But my curiosity was killing me. If it was an animal, fine. But if it wasn't, I grabbed the stepladder from the laundry closet. Each footstep down the hallway felt impossibly loud. I positioned it under the hatch, flashlight app open on my phone. My hand was shaking so bad, the light jittered across the ceiling. I told myself I'd just peek. Just open the hatch a little, shine the light, and confirm it was nothing. I took a deep breath and pulled the cord. The wooden hatch creaked open. A gust of hot, stale air hit my face, thick with the smell of sweat and something sour. I lifted the door wider, slowly. The light from my phone bounced off insulation and dusty beams. Then something shiny caught my eye. A crumpled water bottle. Right next to it, a granola bar wrapper. No one should have been up there. I swallowed hard and angled the light deeper into the darkness. That's when I heard it. A soft shift. Not far away. Then breathing. Slow, shallow, like someone trying not to be heard. I didn't think. I slammed the hatch shut, almost lost my balance on the ladder, and bolted down the stairs. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely dial 911. I told the dispatcher there was someone in my attic. My voice cracked halfway through, and I could hear how insane I sounded. She told me to go outside and wait for police. I ran out barefoot, standing in the driveway. My heart was still pounding when I looked up at my bedroom window, the one right below the crawl space. I swear I saw the curtain move, just slightly. 15 minutes felt like hours. Every sound made me flinch. A car door, a barking dog, even the wind. Finally, 2 officers arrived. A tall man and a short woman. I must have looked insane, standing there shaking and pointing at the roof. The officers went inside. One stayed with me, while the other climbed the ladder. I heard the creak of the hatch opening again. Then silence. Then, "We've got something." My stomach dropped. The officer came down holding a rolled-up sleeping bag, a dirty hoodie, and a pile of empty snack wrappers. The female officer told me in that calm, controlled voice that someone had been living up there. For a while. She said they found footprints in the insulation and a small spot where someone had cleared the dust to lie down. No signs of forced entry, no broken locks, no open windows. Maybe someone came in when a door was left open, she said, though she didn't sound convinced. I remember just standing there in the living room trying to breathe. My brain kept replaying that moment when I tapped the ceiling and something answered. Whoever was up there knew I was home. That night, my mom was hysterical when she came home. She called a locksmith immediately. We had every lock changed. Front, back, windows, even the attic latch. She made me sleep in her room for the next week. Not that either of us got much sleep. Every creak in the floorboards made us tense up. Every sound from above made us glance at the ceiling. The police never caught whoever it was. They said it could have been a transient, someone who found their way in one day and just stayed hidden. But the part that haunts me is what they told us later. Sometimes they come down when people leave for work. They eat, shower, even charge their phones, then go back up. That thought alone kept me awake for nights. A few months went by. We tried to move on, but one afternoon, I came home from school to find the pull cord swinging again, just slightly. The air vent wasn't running. I froze, staring at it, my chest tightening all over again. I called the police. They came, searched everything, Nothing. They said it was probably air pressure or vibration from the neighbors. But I knew what I saw. Now, years later, I live in another state, an apartment with no attic. Still, sometimes when I hear noises above me, I freeze. Because once you've experienced that kind of fear, the realization that someone might be living just feet above you, silently listening, you never really feel alone again. Sometimes the scariest intruders don't break into your home. They're already inside, waiting for you to notice. I grew up in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Maple Grove, Washington, one of those middle-class towns where nothing ever really happened. Everyone waved when they saw you. Lawns were neatly trimmed, and the same mailman had been walking our route for years. Back then, I was 12, and for me, the park at the end of Rosewood Avenue was everything. It wasn't fancy. 2 bent basketball hoops, a half-broken swing set that squeaked like an old hinge, and a drinking fountain that spat out more rust than water. But to us kids, that park was freedom. Most days after school, I'd shoot hoops until the sun turned the sky orange and the air smelled like cut grass and asphalt. That day wasn't supposed to be any different. It was early evening when I decided to head home. My sneakers scuffed against the cracked sidewalk as I dribbled my basketball beside me. The air was cooling down, and I could hear a lawnmower a few blocks away. Everything was normal until I reached the corner near Delmont Street. That's when I saw the car. A dark green sedan, old but clean, rolling slowly down the road. Too slow. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe someone looking for an address. But then it passed me, and a minute later, I saw it again coming from the opposite direction. Same car, same speed. I told myself it was nothing. Coincidence. But as I crossed the next street, I caught a glimpse in the corner of my eye. That same green sedan, crawling along the curb about half a block behind me. My stomach tightened. I walked faster, bouncing the ball a little louder, trying to act casual. The car's headlights were dim, almost like the driver didn't want to draw attention. It trailed me through 3 turns. Every time I thought I'd lost it, it reappeared. Steady, deliberate. The driver's face was hidden behind glare and shadow, but I could see one thing clearly. His hand on the steering wheel, fingers tapping. Slow, steady, rhythmic. I didn't know why, but that tiny detail scared me more than anything. Like he was calm, patient. When I finally turned onto my street, I was practically jogging. The houses looked the same as always, trimmed hedges, kids, bikes, and driveways. But everything felt off, like the entire block was holding its breath. I reached our porch, threw open the door, and slammed it behind me. For a moment, I felt safe. The kind of false safety you get when there's a wall between you and what scares you. But when I peeked through the blinds of the living room window, the sedan was there, parked across the street, engine running. I could see faint exhaust in the cool air, curling like smoke. I called out for my mom, then remembered. She was working late at the diner until 11. Dad was pulling an overnight at the plant. My older sister was at a sleepover. I was completely alone. The digital clock on the microwave read 7:42 p.m. I tried to shake the fear off, told myself to just ignore it. I turned on the TV, flipped channels, turned up the volume too loud, the laughter track on some sitcom echoing through the empty house. But every few minutes, I checked the blinds. And every time, that car was still there. Headlights off, engine humming softly. The low growl seemed to crawl into the walls. By 8:30, it had gotten darker. Streetlights flickered on, painting everything in pale orange. That's when I saw it. A tiny red glow, the tip of a cigarette, burning through the windshield. He was still in there, awake, watching. My throat went dry. I turned off most of the lights in the house, hoping it would make it seem like nobody was home. But then I realized, if the inside was dark, I couldn't see him as clearly anymore. He could see me, but I couldn't see him. I crouched below the window, heart pounding, trying to control my breathing. What did he want? Why my house? Time dragged like a nightmare that wouldn't end. The sound of the TV faded behind the steady hum of the car's engine. I tried calling my mom, but her phone went to voicemail. I thought about calling 911. But then what? What would I even say? There's a car parked outside my house. I pictured the operator's voice, calm but skeptical, and suddenly I felt small, just a scared kid imagining things. But I wasn't imagining it. I knew it. The engine's sound never stopped. At one point, I thought I saw the driver's side door move, open just an inch, then close again. Panic makes you do weird things. I started making noise, clattering dishes, stomping around, pretending to talk to someone in another room. "Yeah, Dad, I'm just watching TV," I shouted toward the hallway. Silence. Then the engine revved, just once. I froze. The blinds were half open, and I could feel eyes on me, like a physical weight pressing against the glass. At 9:07 p.m., the house phone rang. I nearly jumped out of my skin. For a full 5 seconds, I just stared at it, afraid to pick up. What if it was him? I know that doesn't make sense, but in that moment, nothing did. When the answering machine finally clicked, my sister's voice came through, cheerful, oblivious, saying she'd be staying another night at her friend's house. I whispered, "No," under my breath. It felt like the whole world had shrunk to the space between me and that car outside. Finally, I grabbed the phone and dialed Mom's number again. This time, she answered. I tried to sound calm, but my voice cracked as I told her, "Mom, there's a car outside. It's been sitting there for hours." She didn't dismiss it. Her tone changed instantly, sharp, serious. She told me to lock every door, stay away from the windows, and not make any noise. Then she said she was calling the police right now. Hearing that made it real. It wasn't in my head anymore. About 10 minutes later, I saw the flicker of red and blue outside. The sedan's engine roared to life. It jerked forward, like whoever was inside hadn't expected anyone to show up. But the police cruiser cut across the street fast, blocking the exit. I ducked low, peeking through the blinds just enough to see 2 officers approach the car. One's flashlight sliced through the windshield. For a moment, the light caught the driver's face, pale, expressionless, staring straight ahead. Then the engine cut off. The silence that followed was deafening. A few minutes later, one of the officers came to our front door. He asked if I'd called about a suspicious vehicle. I nodded, barely able to speak. He asked how long it had been there, if I'd seen the driver before, if he'd said or done anything threatening. I told him everything, how the car had followed me from the park, how it circled the block, how I'd seen the cigarette light glowing in the dark. He listened quietly, taking notes, but I could tell there was more he wasn't saying. Finally, he said, "You did the right thing calling us. The man in that car, he's being looked into." That was it. No details. His voice was steady, almost too calm. And he avoided my eyes when he said, "You don't need to worry. He won't be coming back tonight. The words stuck in my head. Mom came home a half hour later. She hugged me so tight it hurt. We didn't even talk much. She just kept saying it was over, that everything was fine now. We sat in the living room until dawn, the TV flickering quietly in the background, neither of us really watching. When the morning light finally came through the blinds, the street looked normal again, calm, empty, quiet. But I couldn't stop staring at the spot where the car had been parked. There was still a faint dark patch on the asphalt where the engine had dripped oil. Proof that it wasn't just in my imagination. We never got answers. The police wouldn't tell us what they found, or who the man was, just that it had been handled. But a week later, Mom told me something that made my skin crawl. When she'd gone to her car one morning, she noticed a small folded paper tucked under the windshield wiper. No writing, no message, just blank. We never found out who left it there. It's been more than a decade. That park is gone now, replaced by condos and a parking lot. But I still live in Washington, not too far away. Sometimes when I'm driving home late and the streets are empty, I still glance in the rearview mirror a few too many times. And every now and then, I swear, I see an old green sedan, crawling slow in the distance. It always turns a corner before I can get a clear look. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just my brain remembering. But whenever I see it, that same cold feeling rises in my chest. The one I felt that night, when I realized the car wasn't just passing through. It was waiting. Sometimes danger doesn't knock on your door. It waits quietly across the street, watching until you finally notice. The house always felt different at night, not in the haunted way people talk about, but in that hollow, uneasy quiet that settles when you're the only one awake. That night, the silence felt heavier, like the air itself was holding still. I was 16, home alone in our small suburban house just outside of Portland. My mom was pulling a double shift at the hospital. My stepdad was on a business trip, and my little brother was staying at a friend's place. It wasn't the first time I'd been left alone, but something about that night already felt off. I was lying on the couch, half watching reruns of The Office, scrolling my phone without really seeing anything. The soft glow of the TV made the living room feel smaller, cozier, but that comfort shattered when I heard the knocking. It wasn't a light, neighborly knock. It was steady, slow. Like whoever was on the other side wasn't in a rush to leave. I muted the TV. The knocks came again, 3 this time. I got up, walked toward the front door, and leaned close to the peephole. A man stood there. He was maybe late 30s, tall, wearing a faded navy jacket zipped up to his neck and a cap pulled low over his eyes. Even from behind the door, I could tell he didn't look like a neighbor. He knocked again and said, "Evening. I'm with Northwest Gas and Electric. Just here for a quick check, routine maintenance." His tone was too calm, too rehearsed. I looked for an ID badge, a clipboard, anything that would make him seem legit. But there was nothing. His hands were shoved in his pockets. He didn't have any tools, no truck outside. Just him, standing there in the glow of our porch light. "What kind of check?" I asked, keeping my voice firm even though my heart was starting to race. "Gas line inspection," he said quickly, like he'd practiced the answer. "We've had a few leaks reported on this street." Something about the way he said it didn't sit right. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I think you've got the wrong house," I said, gripping the lock. He tilted his head a little. "You sure about that?" That line hit me like ice. It wasn't what someone from a utility company would say. It sounded like a challenge. I told him I couldn't open the door unless my mom was home. He stared through the peephole for a second too long before saying softly, "All right then." Then he stepped back. I heard his shoes scrape against the porch as he turned and walked off toward the sidewalk. I stayed there, frozen, until the sound of his footsteps disappeared. But the silence that followed didn't feel like relief. It felt like waiting. I checked the driveway from the window. No work truck, no car, just the streetlight flickering at the corner and the hum of distant traffic. I texted my mom. Greater than, "Some guy said he's from the gas company." Left now, but felt weird. She replied almost instantly. Greater than, keep doors locked. Don't open for anyone. I'll call if the company sent someone. Her tone, usually casual, was clipped, serious. I turned off the living room light and tried to focus on the TV again, but I couldn't shake the image of that man's expression. Something about his eyes through the peephole had felt empty. An hour passed. Nothing. Then, too. By midnight, I was starting to convince myself I'd overreacted until I checked the security camera feed. We had 3 cameras, one at the front porch, one near the driveway, and another watching the backyard. When I scrubbed through the feed, my stomach dropped. The man was back. He wasn't at the door this time. He was walking along the side of the house, flashlight in hand, pointing it at the windows like he was inspecting them. He paused at the kitchen window, leaned forward, and pressed his face close to the glass. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. I watched him lift something small and metallic, maybe keys, and jiggle the back door handle. It rattled once, then twice. I lowered the brightness on my phone screen and crouched behind the couch, keeping one eye on the camera feed. He moved slowly, methodically, checking each possible way in. First the laundry room door, then the garage. He wasn't trying to hide. He looked calm, casual, like this was his routine. I dialed 911, whispering to the dispatcher what was happening. She told me to stay on the line and not move. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the urgency underneath it. While I was whispering, I heard a new sound from the back of the house. The soft scrape of metal against glass. He was trying the sliding door. The dispatcher kept asking for updates. Is he inside? Can you still see him? But I couldn't answer for a few seconds. All I could do was stare at the glowing feed on my phone. The man leaned against the door, cupping his hands to block the reflection, trying to see in. And then, almost like he sensed me watching, he turned his head toward the camera. For the first time, I saw his full face. His skin looked ashy, his hair uneven, like someone had cut it themselves. But it was his expression that stuck with me. He wasn't angry or wild. He was bored, detached, like breaking into my house was just another box to check off. "Officers are on their way," the dispatcher said in my ear. "Do not move. Stay hidden." I watched as the man stepped back from the glass door and disappeared from the camera's view. The next 30 seconds were the longest of my life. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of the wall clock. Every noise felt like a signal he could hear from outside. Then, headlights. Red and blue lights filled the street. He reappeared on camera, standing in the side yard, still facing the house. He didn't run. He didn't even flinch when the first patrol car pulled up. He just stared. Then, as the second cruiser turned onto our street, he slowly walked backward into the shadows until the camera lost him. By the time the officers checked the perimeter, he was gone. They looked through the camera footage, asked me to describe him, and promised to send extra patrols for the next few nights. One of them, a young officer named Daniels, watched the clip twice and frowned. He knew what he was doing, he said quietly. Wasn't his first time. They never found him. Mom came home around 3 a.m. When she saw the flashing lights, she sprinted inside, grabbed me, and didn't let go for a long time. Even after the police left, neither of us slept. We sat in the kitchen with all the lights on, the silence between us filled with questions we didn't want to ask. Who was he? Why our house? How long had he been watching before he finally knocked? Over the next week, my stepdad installed new locks, security lights, even extra cameras pointed at the yard. But the feeling of being watched never really went away. Sometimes, when the motion lights flicker on for no reason, I still check the feed, half expecting to see that gray cap and navy jacket standing just out of the light's reach, It's been 2 years since that night. No one ever came back. No one matching his description was ever caught. But every creak, every knock, every flicker on the monitor still makes my pulse race. Because deep down, I know one thing. He wasn't trying to rob us. He was testing the locks. And I don't think he stopped with our house.